So this is Revit I have open, and I'll look at two sheets I've created. One is this final presentation sheet of the three panels. I've exported them individually out of Revit and then grouped them and then moved them over in the case of these 75 feet, I believe, and then given them some labels. I've included the original image. I'll just show you in the 3D view here. As soon as it redraws. So these are model groups. So these two are model groups, and this is probably the area where the original export is happening, and the last thing I did was the panel system. So that would be the kind of output that I would consider a minimum for a good grade of content, amount of content. And I also want you to include the output of the Dynamo definition. If we were to slide out to Dynamo, I can review how we get to that, how we export that definition. So we go to export as image, and we want to make sure we're exporting the workspace. And also you want to be careful about being zoomed in far enough that all of the labels are showing. You'll notice that when I zoom out, the labels of each one of the nodes disappears. Doesn't, as a way to save, I guess, on messy looking graphics. But we need to be zoomed in at least far enough for those to show up. It doesn't matter past that point, it'll export it at a certain given good high resolution. So if I was to go through this, you'll see that it exports it as a PNG file. And then you can import that into Revit. And if I was to show you on the Revit end of it, one of the problems, what I've done here is I've actually used a piece of sky from our 3D view, and I just cropped out everything else so I could use it just as a background. It looked a little weak, the definition sitting on a white page. I thought this made it pop a little bit. And the other problem you might have is that when you place the image over this other image, this one will be in the background. It won't show right. And if you look over in the properties palette, you'll notice that there is a draw layer, and you can draw that layer on the foreground instead of it maybe defaulting to the background. And a reminder, I'd like to see a listing, or excuse me, a narrative of what your experience is. I know a lot of you will probably had a miserable time with this, and then another group of you would have had a great time with this. And I'm really interested to hear kind of the mix of the commentary on that, and suggestions for improvement, how valuable you think it is. If you don't think it's valuable, if you think our time would be better spent with some other project that I could develop, all of that I consider really useful and valuable information. So, and also if you decided that you weren't doing so well on some of the exports and you wanted to build a little stronger presentation, you could render these in Enscape and put them in the context of a building or something like that. That's up to you, the management of your own time. But this is what I consider, a sufficient amount of work for this project. So I look forward to your submissions.